Hey everyone, Cedric from Vertex Marketing Agency, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to A/B test your Facebook ads in Ads Manager. And I'm going to show you the exact same process that we take in our agency to test creatives and answer some of the common questions like, how long should I leave a test running? What do I do with my winners? What do I do with my losers? And a lot more. And I thought actually this video would be the perfect time to wear this t-shirt, so I'd rather be A/B testing, because it's true. To be honest, that's probably my favorite part about my job, which is, managing Facebook ads for clients, is the A/B testing side of things. And I think that's also the most important part, because it's really all about generating new ideas, like with creatives and copy, and implementing on those ideas, right? So getting those, let's say those UGC videos, those images, and just going in Ads Manager and testing them. And hey, was it a good idea or was it a bad idea? If it's a bad idea, you'll learn from it, so that you try to put those ideas on the side and just think about the good ones in the future. But then if it's a good idea, perfect, you scale that, and then you think, like, how could I replicate this? Or how could I create something new that is similar to this? And it's like a loop. You just want to keep repeating that process. But it all starts by knowing how to A/B test and how to really structure everything. And that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you in this video. Okay, so I am now inside my demo ad account, and I first want to talk about the typical ad account setup that we usually will implement for a client. So we will always have like a main campaign, and that main campaign, that's the one receiving the majority of the budget. And inside that main campaign, usually we'll have like maybe 1, 2 to 3 different ad sets. But like 99% of the time, we will have a broad ad set. And what does broad mean? Broad just means that we're just selecting the specific, let's say, country or maybe states that we want to target. Or if it's local advertising, we'll select the city. And we actually don't include anything else in the audience, but instead we do the targeting with the ad. So now with the advancement in technology, Facebook can actually just understand A, your copy, but B, your image and your video and the landing page, and really just understand what you're all about, what you do, and who your customers are. And because you have tracking set up and you're sending, let's say, a lead event or a purchase event back to Facebook, it knows exactly who your customers are. So by using this information, they can just go ahead and kind of like create your own lookalike audience, which that's what we really used to do, like back in, I would say 2019, is we would create, lookalike audiences. But now those tend to not work as well as something like a broad audience. So that's number one. And then another reason why we like the broad audience is because once you can make it work with the broad audience, it's really easy to scale because you don't have a limit with the frequency. I mean, if you do, it's more of like an issue with Facebook, meaning like you're spending just way too much and Facebook just doesn't have a big enough audience for you, which at that point, like that's a whole other issue. So that's why we really like the broad audience, and it makes it also really easy to test. But I'll get into that in just a second. I just want to show you kind of like what the typical ad account structure will look like. I'm not saying that everyone just only gets one campaign, one ad set, but usually the majority of the budget is going to go towards that main campaign. But it doesn't mean that we don't have like another campaign, like doing like a catalog sales or other specific type of campaign, maybe targeting specifically like different countries, and we just want to have those separate. Again, what I'm saying is most of the time there's going to be one campaign in your ad account that is receiving the majority of the budget, and that's what we call like a main campaign. But with that being said, now let me show you how you would go ahead and structure that testing campaign. So now creating your testing campaign, there's a few different ways of doing it. I actually like to create just a brand new campaign and doing it a little bit more manually. But if you talk to like a meta specialist, they would probably say or refer you to this feature right here, which is A/B testing. But I'm personally not a big fan of that, and I've talked to a lot of other advertisers and they usually have the same opinion. And the reason I'm not a big fan of the A/B test feature here is because once you create it, you have to set a start and an end date. And what I'm going to show you is if ever your ad set or really your test is performing well, don't pause it. And then a meta specialist will usually say, well, yeah, just pause it and bring that inside your main campaign, and the ad's going to be running there. Just with experience, and also if you have experience running Facebook ads, you'll notice often that your test might actually perform really well in your testing campaign, but once you bring it inside your main campaign, it doesn't have the same momentum that it had inside your testing campaign, which is fine. That will happen, but that's why you want to just ideally just keep that test running for as long as it performs well. And with that feature, it just doesn't really allow you to do that. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm not really a big fan of that feature. So I've made this Notion document, and this is kind of like a cheat sheet, and the link of this document is going to be in the description of this video. You don't need to give me your email or to download anything to get it. Just click the link and you'll see it. But what we're going to do is we're going to follow this, because that's actually what I follow to A/B tests our creative. So the first thing you want to do, step one, is setting up your campaign. So you're going to go to Ads Manager. You're going to create a new campaign. And the campaign objective needs to be the same objective that you have inside your main campaign. So if you've selected sales in your main campaign, I'm going to select sales here, and that's what I've done. But if you're a service-based company and your main campaign you've selected leads, you're going to select leads. And that's really important, because if you don't select the same objective, when you do find a good test, you're going to want to duplicate that ad to bring it inside your main campaign. And if it doesn't have the same objective, you won't be able to duplicate it. Someone could make the point that, okay, well, just upload and create that ad inside your main campaign. Sure, you can do that, but if you do that, that's going to be a different ad ID. And I mean, at this point, you're kind of losing some of the learnings that ad has made. But then the other thing, and that's probably for me, at least the main reason, is you're losing the engagement. So when you're duplicating an ad from an ad set, like your testing ad set, to bring it inside your main campaign, if you select the same campaign objective and you also select the option that says keep existing engagement, you're going to be able to keep that engagement. And I mean, it's social proof, right? Because you're paying for those likes, those comments, and those shares. And when you get ideally good comments, it's free social proof, and it actually helps. It gives your ad a little boost. So that's why I always like to select the same campaign objective. So I'm going to select sales here, and then I'll usually just select manual sales campaign and go to the campaign level here. So first thing I say here is like name your campaign testing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Testing. And then this is going to really depend on your business model. So are you in a special ad category, credit, employment, or housing? If you are, obviously you want to select that. If not, you're going to get your ad account disabled. This here, use a catalog. I always turn that off. And then create A/B testing. I do not use that feature, so I leave that off. I always A/B test my ads manually, so the way that I'm showing you in this video, and I do not use that feature, because with this feature, you need to add a start and an end date. So we're not going to do that. And I do not turn this feature on, right? So that's actually step or point number 2 here, budget optimization. So choose ad set budget optimization. So ad set budget optimization is when the budget is on the ad set. This is a campaign, right? So we don't want to set the budget here. If I were to turn this on, what would happen is it would allow me to set the budget on a campaign. And it's fine if you only have one test that you're running. But what I'm going to show you is how to potentially have like 2 or 3 different ad sets testing different types of ads. And what that's going to do, if you have this on, is just going to spend the money on the ad set that has the lowest cost per result, which you might think, oh, well, that's fine. Like, I want to spend the money wherever it makes sense. Yes, but if one ad set has been running for longer than another ad set, that one's going to have momentum and probably have maybe a better cost per result than another ad set. And now that new test that you want to run to see if it performs better, and every time you're running a new test, that probably means that you think those ads will perform better than the current ads that you're running. So you want to at least have a minimum amount of spend that you can dedicate to that ad set, and have control on potentially increasing that budget, decreasing that budget, and forcing basically a specific amount of send towards that ad set. And with campaign budget optimization, right, this option right here is just not really going to allow you to do that in the same way that ad set budget optimization would do. So I'm going to turn that off. And now we're ready to go on the ad set level. So for the ad set level, I usually will do this. So I'll name this testing, and I'll say broad. And the reason I'm using a broad audience here is that inside my main campaign, I'm also using a broad audience. I usually want to look at the results that I'm having inside my main campaign and compare the results with the results I'm getting inside my testing campaign here. But if in my main campaign I'm using broad, and here I would use, let's say, a lookalike or retargeting audience, that would mean that I'm not looking at the same thing, right? What here I'm testing and what I'm showing you how to do is how to A/B test your creatives. If I guess you wanted to A/B test audiences, then what you would want to do is you would want to use the same ads that are inside your main campaign, bring those ads inside that testing ad set, and now only change the ad set so you have one variable. And that's what I'm a big fan of, have one variable. So are you testing the audience or are you testing the creatives? Most of the time I am testing the creatives. That's why I'm not spending too much time showing you and talking about different like audience variations. I'm going to be talking more about different creative variation, because to me, that's what I found just drives the most amount of results for, like, you know, input versus output. I will usually use a broad audience, and if you're not using a broad audience inside your main campaign, make sure that the audience here is broad enough. So don't have a bunch of interest targeting, like if they need to meet this and this and this and this and this in order to fall in this audience, because that means that the audience size is going to be a little bit too small. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And another reason you want to have a big enough audience is because here I'm using the same audience I'm using inside my main campaign, and inside your main campaign you're only doing retargeting. Most likely what you will see is an audience overlap, so you want to try to avoid that as much as you can by using a big enough audience so that hopefully there's not an overlap. But outside of that, you're going to come here, and if inside your main campaign you're sending people to your website, you're going to select that option here. If you're doing website and shop in your main campaign, you're going to select that option, right? So you really want to duplicate what you're doing with your main campaign on the ad set level right here. So you're going to go ahead and select obviously the same pixel, the same conversion event, all the same settings, and this is where you set your budget. So in terms of budget, it kind of depends on what your cost per result is. So if your cost per result is really low, you can get away with a lower budget, because let's say you're only spending, I don't know, $100 a day in this test, and your cost per purchase is $10. Well, you know, every day you're going to potentially have about 10 purchases. But if you let that run for about 5 days, you're probably going to have 50 purchases. And if you only have 4 ads, 50 purchases divided with all those ads, like, it's going to give you enough purchase to be able to clearly understand and identify a winner, right? But since it's a demo, I'm just gonna set it to, let's say, 150 a day. And that's pretty much it in terms of what I would do in the ad set. But obviously if you're targeting United States, you would go ahead and change the location here. But this is a demo, I'm just gonna leave it to default. And for me, that's Canada. And again, I'm not changing anything else here. So let me go back here. I wanna talk about number of variations. So each ad set should have a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 6 ad set. So the reason for that is just like what I said. So if you have too many ads, it's going to be a lot harder for you to actually make a decision on which ad is actually performing best, because what's probably going to end up happening is some of them will not get enough spend for you to be able to make an informed decision. And you have too little ads, then I mean, you're just not testing enough at this point. So the sweet spot is between 2 and 6. And if you want to find like maybe even a better middle ground for your company, again, it depends on your cost per result and your spend. So if your cost per result is low and your spend is really high, you can probably be closer to the 5 or 6 ad that you're testing per ad set. But if it's the other way around, then you probably want to aim around 2 or 3, but never go below 2. And I don't recommend companies to go above 6 unless you're a really, really large company and you're spending a lot on Facebook ads. The second thing here that I'm going to talk about is the different types of variation. So what you want to do is maybe just try different hooks. So it could be like the first 5 seconds of the video. If it's an image, maybe it's just like the headline that you're changing. Maybe it's the copy. So same videos or same images, and you're just trying out different copy. So I usually like to grab, like, let's say a video concept or an image concept and just change a lot of different things about that image or video to create different variation. But what I don't do, and that's what I explain here, I try to avoid using different types of creatives inside the same ad set. Let me give you an example. I will not have one video and then testing 2 different carousels, because at that point they're different types of creatives and they're not really equal. But usually what I've found is that carousels, when they're mixed with videos and images, they sometimes suck up all the budget. So what you want to avoid is mixing different types of creatives together. So if you're testing images, like I said, test different hooks, test different colors maybe in the image, but test only images, and the concept should be similar. And same thing with videos. If you're testing, like, let's say you have a specific video you want to test, just make different versions. If it's a UGC video, ask the creator, okay, like, record this content, but the first, like, let's say your hook, let's try this hook, that hook, and like 3 different hooks. So now you have 3 different versions to test, but just stick with carousel if that's what you want to test with that ad set. Okay, so for step 2, create enough but not too much creatives, and I give you different examples of what to test. So it could be a different headline, it could be just a different hook, or it could actually be the same video, but like one video is longer, let's say 55 seconds, and the other one is like cropped to 25 seconds. So you're testing long versus short. So those different types of tests you can make. And again, the biggest takeaway here is don't mix and match. So number 3 is launch and monitor. So everything's good with your ad set and your ads, you're gonna go ahead and click the launch button. What you want to do is you want for the next 5 days to just monitor your ad, just look and see, okay, are purchases or are leads flowing in, but you don't want to make any changes yet. And just please note that the review process or the launch and monitor process will depend on your sales cycle. So if you have a short sales cycle, then regardless, I don't recommend that you go below 5 days. Maybe 4 days would be acceptable if you have a really short sales cycle, but definitely I wouldn't really recommend it. Like honestly, 5 days I think is perfect. But if you have a longer sales cycle, then maybe you want to let the ads that run for, let's say, 2 weeks. So it really depends on your company. And if ever you do have a really long sales cycle and where it's like maybe you're at the end of the day, you're trying to see if those leads are converting into deals because you're a service-based company, then maybe at that point you're not optimizing for the deals because that will take too long. Maybe you're trying to like identify how many, let's say, valid lead this ad set generated, right? So you're trying to find maybe a metric that is closer to, let's say, the deal stage, but is not really the deal stage because maybe that just takes too long. And if ever you have an e-com store where your product costs, I don't know, $500, so there's a long sales cycle, then again, maybe you want to just wait a little bit longer or find another metric that you could use to identify like early success in an ad set or with an ad. But guys, that's a launch and monitor stage. Identify the winner. All right, so that's my favorite part. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go inside Ads Manager. So let's pretend that this one has been launched. So we have my testing ad set and my regular broad campaign, right? Both of them have the same audience. And I would just go to the result tab. Obviously this is demo account, so there's no data, but I would look at how many results they're generating, but more importantly, what is the cost per result? And if you're in the e-com space, then maybe you're also looking at things like the return on ad spend, right? You're adding that to your view, and you're just kind of looking on the ad set level now, which one is performing better. If ever your main campaign is performing better than your testing ad set, don't give up yet. Just go now, select your main campaign and select your testing ad set, and you want to go to the ad level. And what you're trying to see here is, are any of my ads that have enough data? What I mean by enough data is inside your testing ad set, when you're looking at your results, you want to look at this and say, okay, because of my budget and my cost per result and what I see in, let's say, a 5-day period, I can actually confidently see that this ad or that ad is actually performing well. Or maybe, who knows, none of them are performing well, right? But you need to have enough data to be confident that, okay, this was a good test or this wasn't a good test. And if this was a good test, let's say one of your ad inside your testing ad set is actually performing better than any of your ad inside your main campaign, what you're gonna do is you're gonna duplicate that ad and you're gonna bring it inside your main campaign. And if ever it did not perform well, then what you're going to do is after the 5-day, again, if it has been enough time and you're confident about the data, you can go ahead and pause that testing ad set, right? And then let's say inside your testing ad set, you find an ad that is performing well, but when you compare it to your main campaign, it doesn't match the results of your best ad inside your main campaign. Well, then the next question you want to ask yourself, is it better than the worst ad inside my main campaign? If that's the case, same thing here. You're gonna duplicate that ad and bring it inside your main campaign. And now the question that I get all the time is, okay, Cedric, so once I brought that good ad inside my main campaign, like what do I do now? Well, if the ad is performing well inside your testing campaign, leave it there, right? Let that ad set run. And sometimes what I'll even do is I'll even scale a testing ad set. What I'll do is, for as long as it's performing well, every 2 days, I'll go inside my ad set and I'll increase the budget by, let's say, 20%. And I'll just continue scaling until I see a drop in the cost per result, or again, return on ad spend, depending on the metric that you're using. But don't pause something that works, right? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. So if ever a testing ad set is performing well, leave that running. And you can kind of just like monitor it. And that's what actually the last step is right here, is keep an eye on the winner. So whenever you do find a winner, just keep an eye on it, monitor it. And if ever, let's say you have 3 ads that are performing really well inside your testing ad set, and after, let's say 3 weeks, let's say one of them stops performing well, but the other 2 are still doing well, then just pause the one that is not doing well. And you're gonna keep running those 2 that are doing well, again, until they don't perform well. And it's kind of like a rinse and repeat process. And that's why I say to use ad set budget optimization and not campaign budget optimization, because I really wish for you that you find an ad set that performs well and that you're gonna leave running for, let's say, a month. So for that 1 month period, you don't want to just have one ad set that is running, because you want to test other stuff. So what you do is you kind of like rinse and repeat. So you would create another ad set, and in that ad set, it would just be like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different creatives that you're testing. And you're gonna do the same process that you just did with the prior ad set, right? So you let it run for enough days, look at your data. Is it a good test or is it a bad test? And it's really a rinse and repeat process. So guys, that is it for this video. Now, hopefully you know exactly how to A/B test your creatives. And if ever you want that cheat sheet, again, it's in the description of this video. I recommend that you take a look at it, even maybe like download it. And whenever you're A/B testing, just reference that sheet and make sure that you're following all the different steps. But guys, that is it for this video. Bye for now.